So when we look logically, we see that light is never understood without darkness, and that heat is not known without coldness. And truth can only become placed next to falsehood. There's a lot of times we even have like physical examples of like there are some people who have unfortunately been in like horrible situations where maybe their parents or somebody like locks them up in a place. There was a study about it, a girl whose dad locked them up in a closet for like 10 years or something like that. When they came out, they weren't able to see anything because they were not exposed to light. So they only knew darkness. And we have to understand that nothing is understood in isolation. You always have to compare and contrast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجَيْنِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. We have created everything in pairs for you so that you might reflect. So when we come to religion and culture, those are two, in a lot of cases, are opposing factors. In religion, when you examine religion, it can expose you the flaws in the culture. And when you examine the culture, you can see what is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what is coming from the people. And Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is a perfect example to show us the light in this duality. So the first part is when we look at culture versus religion in terms of stereotypes. When we hear stories about Al-Abbas, we see like Abbas has ghira. Be a protector like Abbas. A lot of times when we say that, we look at the boys. When we see Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam, we see modesty. We're like, be modest like Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam. But when we do this, there's an assumption in language. If I address one group of people and I tell you guys one thing, the other group usually ignores that suggestion or idea. And the same thing for each other. So we see sometimes parents, they don't want their girls to go to school. I want my girl to be so modest. I don't want anybody to see her. I'm gonna make her self-study at home. I'll teach her at home. I don't want boys to see her. Meanwhile, the boys, yeah, go ahead, have fun. Do whatever you want. When a girl does something bad, we're like, oh my God, our honor is gone, our karama is gone. When a boy does something bad, we're like, oh yeah, dap me up, let's go. There's that stereotype and that duality that exists, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about modesty, He first addresses who? قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. He first talks to the men, and then قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَغُضْضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنْ. So when we come to modesty, it's always known like, oh, girls have to have modesty, but we never talk about boys having modesty. So this is a lot of times a cultural thing. This is something that culture has taught us. But it's not something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to examine every aspect that we have in our culture and see, compare it with the religion. Is this thing true? Is it accurate? Does it reflect on what Islam says? And there's a lot of other examples in this category. But we have to, the core principality of this is examining and seeing how Islam treats this? Does it tell us that bravery is only for women, for men? Does it tell us that modesty is only for women? What is one of the most famous khutbahs that we all know about? Khutbat al-Fadakiyya. Where was this? This was after the death of the Prophet, or the martyrdom of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when everybody was against them. Everybody was against Imam Ali, Fatima al-Zahra. She went out with her ladies, with her children. She went to the masjid. It's like the palace of the place of control of the government. She went against these revolutionaries, these rebels, more like it, and she spoke the truth. She showed bravery such as no other. At that time, women are told, just stay home, be a homemaker, and all that stuff. But Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, when she saw injustice, she went out. She showed bravery. So bravery is not a trait only for men. It's also a trait for women. And one thing we have to notice here is when we look at this narration, who's the narrator of this khutbah? Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam. She was 5 years old. Notice another thing that relates to the first topic that we talked about, which is coming to majalis. Even though Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam was going out against a tyrant and speaking out the truth, she still took her child with her. Because this is another thing that we sometimes avoid doing, which is we shelter our kids a lot. We don't let them face difficulties. We want to give them as easy of a life as possible. But if we look at the actions of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, then we see that is not the accurate way to do things. Another example is, we all know the hadith that Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam says, Al-jar thumma ad-dar. Do you guys know how the narration starts? It starts by saying, Imam al-Hasan says that Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam took him and put him next to her as she was doing salawat and ibadat at night. Notice, she didn't let the kid go like, the kid is asleep, I feel bad for him. Oh, my kid is tired. He doesn't need to come to the majlis, he has stuff to do, it's okay. No, she took him next to her and she made him listen. I remember this reflected in my life a little bit. When I was young, we always went to Masjid al-Imam al-Sadiq in Qatar. I was like 9, 8, 10, and I would always see kids going out and playing. And I would beg my dad, please let me go. Please let me go play. All the kids are going out playing. Nobody's here listening to Dua Kumel. He's like, no, you're going to sit here and you're going to listen with me. And even at that time, I'm like, why is my dad doing this? I just want to go and have fun. Everybody else's parents are doing that. They're letting their kids go and do whatever they want. Why can't my dad be like that? Why is he so strict? But now I know how to recite Dua Kumail, and even at that time I started memorizing it from how much I heard it being recited. I'm thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving me such a parent. Because when you let your kids in their young age do whatever they want, a lot of times they're gonna come to regret that thing. We even had some incidents. Arabic school, nobody wants Arabic school. Who wants their Saturday to be ruined with learning Arabic and religion and Islam and Quran? Have to do extra homework. And so most kids, if I ask them, they're like, yeah, my parents forced me. I'm like, good. Because there has been incidents where people come when they're older, they're like, we were in Arabic school, but we dropped out. Like we finally nagged our parents enough that like, okay, I don't want to deal with this. And they're like, okay, you don't have to go to Arabic school, or you don't have to do this thing, or you don't have to go to this majlis. But then they come, they're like, I wish I learned Arabic. Or they're like, can we take lessons now? They're like 16, 17, 18. So a lot of times, when you let your kids go and do their own thing, they get lost, they get astray, they get taken to a stray path. If you're a sheep herder and you have a sheep, like let's say you have a naughty sheep among the flock, it keeps trying to run away. You put it back once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. After the 1,000th times, you're like, okay, fine, let it go. Goes, gets lost, goes, jumps off a cliff, goes, hurts itself. So we always have to have that consistent, persistent with them. Now, another aspect that we look at is when we look at how we conduct ourselves in marriage and consultation. So you see a lot of times nowadays, there was a funny video, like it was funny for me, but I don't think it was funny for them. There are like these people in the Middle East, probably Saudi Arabia, they're like, oh, how much is your mahar? Oh, my mahar is $500,000. My mahar is $1 million. My mahar is $2 million. What kind of concept is this? When we look at Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, most narrations say her mahar was between 480 to 500 dirhams, or 400 to 500 dirhams. If we convert that, maybe it's like $5,000 to $10,000, around that. That was the mahar of Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. The first point is, when you tie your self-value to money, then you start self-objectifying yourself. So a lot of times, people don't get promotions or raises at work because they don't value their own work. Or if you're an independent service, sometimes they're like, yeah, I can paint this wall for $50 for you. You're like, why are you saying that? This wall is gonna cost like $500. They're like, yeah, I know, but like I don't have experience and like I don't have a lot of customers and this and that. But when you talk to business people, especially people who started by themselves, they're like, the best decision I've made is to raise my prices. Because whenever I reduce my prices, then the value of my work lowers. This is tied to money. Now, if you tie your marriage to a high mahar, you're saying I'm worth this much, even if it's 2 million, even if it's 10 million. Are you really worth only 2 million or 10 million? And if I ask any of the ladies here, are you better than Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam? Who in the world, if I say Fatima al-Zahra is the second best woman in the world, who would dare say that they're the first best woman? So when we take this and compare it to the culture, we see there's a big problem with the culture. One interesting study that was conducted, I believe in 2014, it looked at divorce rates based on wedding costs. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. So it looked and saw that people who have spent more than 20,000 are more likely to get divorced than people who spend less than 1,000. Interesting tidbit. So a lot of times when we relate ourselves to money, we kind of box ourselves in that aspect. We're saying this is what our worth. But when you say that mahar is just part of the marriage and maybe there's other reasons for it, but this is not my value. This is just a token. Then you elevate yourself to a much higher level. And we have to always look at what Ahlulbayt and the Sunnah is. من جاءكم من ترضون بدينه وخلقه فزوجوه. Something along those lines. Whoever comes to you, that is, you accept their deen, you accept their faith, you accept their faith and his manners, then marry him. Then the same aspect, after, let's say, you get married, or just before that, there's always two results whenever you make things difficult for a man. The first result, and this is I heard from like second-hand stories, you make difficulties, you put barriers, and you like make obstacles. I want this mahar, I want this much gold, I want this much thing, I want this much that, I want a car, I want a house, rukun, diamond rukun, corner house, so that I'm isolated. I want all these things. Let's say the man fulfills all these demands. A lot of times when the demand is excessive, even after they get what they want, the man becomes bitter in their heart. They're like, why did you make me go through all these difficulties to get you? Why did you make it so difficult? Why did you make this process so difficult? This is one result. Another result is like, let's say they don't get them. Whatever difficulties happen, they don't get them. What's their thought process becomes, which is a thought process like that's spread around in the West as well. Oh, all women are materialistic. All women just want money. All women are just like selfish. They get this negative view of a whole section of society. So it's negative in both aspects, whether they get it or they don't when you make things difficult. Now, the next part, let's say you get married properly, inshallah, within the marriage itself. We have this ideology in culture that a man is the leader and his word is what goes. If you consult your wife, oh, he's whipped. Oh, he's scared of his wife. Oh, he doesn't want to go to this gathering? Oh, his wife told him not to. But when we look at the seerah of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, after Khutbat al-Fadakiyya and after what happened with her house, the burning and the dhullah, Abu Bakr and Umar came and they're like, we want to speak to Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. And they basically were able to get the word of Imam Ali that, okay, I'll let you guys see her. Now what did Imam Ali do? Did he say, okay, this is the facts, this is how it's gonna go? No, he went to her, he asked her. He's like, these people want to see you. And we know what she said. Ad-daru daruk wal-jariya jariyatuk. The house is yours and the lady is your servant. But we see the interactions between these two. This is the important part that we have to focus on. When Imam Ali wanted to do something, he went and asked his wife. And when Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam understood that he gave his word, then she's like, I don't want to see them, but if this is what you want me to do, then I will do it. And I know at the end of this lecture, some of the brothers are going to be like, your wife told you to do that, right? Your wife told you to say that. She edited the script a little bit here and there. But we have to understand also in psychology, whenever we talk about stereotypes, so stereotypes are things that biases that we have in our brains. So if we say, oh, all black people are gangsters, or we say, oh, all Asian peoples are smart, this is a stereotype. And one thing they say in psychology is even joking about this enforces the stereotype. It enforces the idea in your head. So all these jokes, guys, be careful, don't say them, because it enforces that idea. I know it's funny, but it's also true. Whenever you talk about things, even jokingly, a lot of times it gets in your head. Like if you're a jokester, you're a funny person, you're like, I'm so dumb, I'm so dumb. You start becoming like that. Whereas there's like something called self-affirmation in psychology, where like they tell you every single morning, if you have a problem, like let's say you have self-confidence issues, you think you're ugly. Every morning, just go in the mirror and say, I'm handsome, I'm beautiful, I'm this, I'm that. Just keep repeating it. Keep repeating it in your mind. Keep repeating it out loud, and it's gonna affirm that belief in your head. But going back to the specific topic, when we see this, who can say here that they're more of a man than Imam Ali? قال عباب خيبر. Who's more of a man than Imam Ali? قتال العرب. But Imam Ali consults his wife. Does that mean Imam Ali is whipped? Does that mean Imam Ali is scared of his wife? No, but this is the proper way of interacting with each other. There's rahma and mawadda between the husband and wife, and this is only can happen when there's understanding between each other. There's one narration where Imam Ali says, ما أغضبتني قط وما أغضبتها. I've never angered her and she never angered me. Now some of the guys will be like, Ammar, I do everything for my wife and she's still angry. I do everything for her. Whatever she wants, I give it to her. Or like the wife was like, I cook for him, I clean for him, I do this for him. He's always in a bad mood. What do I do? When we look at these hadith, we have to examine them very deeply. Because when you look at this hadith itself, if you're a man, maybe you get from this hadith that, oh, the woman should never anger me. Or if you're a woman, maybe you get that a man should not anger me. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you think, yeah, this is how a woman should be. She should never anger me. She should follow me just like a robot, like a sheep. And the vice versa. But when we look at this, we see that there's work from both sides. So when somebody is like doing good work, they're doing work for Husseiniya, they're maybe working hard at their job to get money, they're doing things to like improve the life of the household, or they're doing things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then as a wife, you have to be supportive of that. You have to be encouraging of that. When we look, by the way, when we look at the life of Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, how much was Imam Ali at the house? Barely. He was always in a war, in a fight, somewhere. But again, guys, that doesn't mean you go to do shisha every night. That's not part of it. What that means is if the man is doing something for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or for the benefit of the family, then don't be too harsh on him. And the same is true for the other side, guys. Okay, I talked a bit for the woman, now it's the guy's turn. You guys know that cooking and cleaning and all that stuff is not wajib for a woman, right? Because, and I believe, this is my own personal opinion, I believe that part of that is when you're at your work and you do your job, is your boss going to be grateful for you? No, I'm paying you money. Yeah, you better do a good job. I'm paying you good money for it. If it was wajib, I'd be like, yeah, you're supposed to clean. You're supposed to cook. That's what's expected from you. But when it becomes something that is not wajib, but again, ladies, it's very recommended. All the hadith talk about like, if a woman cooks for her husband, if a woman takes care of the house, they're all talking about the benefits of that and the ajr for that. Jihadul mar'a is like taking care of her house. The jihad for women is managing her household. But guys, if you go back home one day and there's no food, don't be like, oh my God, I went to work, I'm tired all day, and now I come and there's no food. What have you been doing all day? On Instagram, TikTok, what are you doing? Yeah, exactly. That's one, I believe Sayyid Salah Shubha was like, yeah, she's not supposed to cook for you. Actually, you're supposed to give her meals. Whether you cook for her or whether you order food for her or whether you provide the ingredients for food. I know some guys are pointing at me, they're like, stop, stop, stop. But when I'm talking about all this, I'm not trying to make a marriage into interaction. That doesn't mean tomorrow you're going to be like, okay, husband, I don't need to cook for you. That's it. That's what Ammar said. Because there's supposed to be mawadda and rahmah. You're supposed to do things for each other for that. By the way, ladies, if you don't have to cook or clean, we don't have to bring you presents, take you out, take you on vacation. You can stay at home all day. So it balances things out. So all of this just comes from the factor that you have to keep in mind that gratitude, that gratefulness. Food is not cooked too well today, that's fine. Your clothes has stain, it's not ironed, that is fine. You have to be grateful for when it's happening and forgive and forget when it's not happening. Allah. The next part we want to talk about is aql. There's been many narrations about the importance of aql in religion. Being a sheep, following the herd, even following whatever your parents are doing, is not the way of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذا قيل لهم اتبعوا ما أنزل الله قالوا بل نتبع ما ألفينا عليه آباءنا. This is another important point, just like how we made in hadith. Whenever we read ayat from the Quran, even myself, I'm speaking to myself first before anybody else. Whenever we read ayat from the Quran, we read about Qawm Fir'aun, Qawm Lut, Qawm this, Qawm that, Al-Zalimeen, Al-Kafirin. We're like, Alhamdulillah, we're not one of those people. Alhamdulillah, we're not Qawm Fir'aun, we're not Qawm this, we're not Qawm that. But there is a trap that you can fall into. Just because you're not one of those people, the Quran is for every time, every place. Just because you're not from those people, Allah is not telling you just stories to entertain you. The Quran is not an entertainment book. It's not a story book. It's a book of wisdom. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, one of the things that you can consider is, why are you doing the things that you're doing? If I pick any one of the children here or youth, I'm like, why are you Shia? Why are you even Muslim? Why are you praying? Why are you fasting? If your answer is just because I was born like this, or because my parents told me so, or because some random thing like, oh yeah, Hasanah, Jannah, whatever, then that means there's something incomplete there. That's why whenever we ask, let's say we have 10 people, 9 out of 10 people, if you compare them to somebody who's converted to Islam, and specifically converted to Shia Islam, they will know more than the people who are born as Shia, because they have studied, because they have been through it all, because they have explored all the hadith, the books. Sometimes I go and I listen to a lecture, and I'm like, I go to my mom, I'm like, Mom, did you know about this? There's this thing, it's like, I'm mind blown. It's like a revelation to me. It's like I just discovered gravity. An apple fell on my head and I discovered a new concept. And my mom was like, yeah, I read about this in a book 5 years ago. What? This is something that is very important, which is not following what you've been taught just for the sake of it. Explore, read books, listen to muhadarat, listen to why you're doing specific things. Listen and learn what the specific rulings that apply to you. One of the things I used to do as a pastime when I was a kid is I would just go to Sayyid Sistani's website and like read questions and answers. I didn't have any question, I just wanted to read. تفقهوا في الدين. You can't follow whatever the culture has set for you. Because when that happens, there was a question that was asked to a Sayyid that has a TV program. People ask him questions and he answers. And the question was like, Sayyid, we are a very religious family. And we raise our daughter right, she's religious. But when she entered university, she started asking questions. Like, why are these people doing this thing? Why are the girls befriending the boys? Why are they listening to this? Why are they doing that? And the Sayyid was like, you have raised your daughter right, but your daughter was the type that wouldn't like reply back, and she would just follow what she's told. But then when she's explored to the real world, questions start coming in, doubts start coming in. You're like, why am I doing this thing? You can reach the point where like you start like stopping doing some things. Like if you think about it, why are we doing latmiya? Is it wajib? It's not wajib. Why are we doing it? Some people might say, like, was there an imam or a prophet who did latmiya? Like they beat their chest. And they're like, okay, I'm not going to do this thing. I'm going to attend the majlis, but I'm not going to do latmiya. When they don't understand the basic principle behind it is that we're doing it as a form of mourning for Imam Hussein or any of the imams that we're mentioning. There's a reason behind it, but that reason was never explained to them. So they start assuming things and saying, okay, I'm not going to do this thing, I'm not going to do this thing, I'm not going to do that thing. And sometimes reality hits them when somebody who's a non-believer gives them a question that they can't answer to. So one interesting fact that one interesting ayah that I read in the Quran is أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ألم تر إلى الذي حاج إبراهيم في ربه أن أتاه الله الملك إذ قال إبراهيم ربي الذي يحيي ويميت قال أنا أحيي وأميت قال إبراهيم فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأت بها من المغرب فبهت الذي كفر والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين صدق الله العلي العظيم. In this story, Ibrahim alayhi salam encountered a king. The king was, Ibrahim was like, Allah is the one who decides death and life. The king was like, okay, there's a prisoner who's sentenced for death, I'm going to release him. There's a free man who has done nothing wrong, I'm going to kill him. I decide life and death. Now, when we think about it this logically, guys, it's not the same thing as life and death, right? Like giving birth to somebody and somebody dying of like an accident or old age or whatever is not the same as like freeing a death row inmate and killing an innocent person. But Ibrahim alayhi salam, a lot of these times, like we see things in the Quran or we read things and we're like, why didn't the Prophet say this, or why didn't the Prophet do this? It's because the people's mentality. This king, you can talk with them all you want, but he's not gonna get it. He has that kind of mentality. So he gave him another more pure example. Allah brings the sun from one direction, bring it in the other if you're God. So aql, when we learn our religion, when we study our religion, when we learn our fiqh, whenever we encounter a difficulty, we already know the answer for. We're not gonna stumble. We're not gonna quit. There are sometimes people called like non-practicing Muslim. What are you then? Oh yeah, I was born Muslim, like I believe in Allah, but I'm not doing salat and I'm not doing siyam and a lot of. You're laughing, but there are people like that. And these people, maybe they have been stumped by something. A non-believer or mushrik or somebody's like, they gave them a question, they're like, I can't answer this. And the immediate thought that they have, I can't answer this, so there's no answer for this. But when you start using your aql, when you start using your intellect, that's when you can get to a higher level, even in heaven. There's a funny story about one person from Bani Israel. An angel was passing by an island. He saw a person, a ubbad from Bani Israel, somebody who's just dedicated to prayers. And he's like, oh Allah, he went to Allah and he's like, Allah, this person is like such a good person. Like I want to see his reward in heaven. What is he gonna get? Is he gonna get a palace? Is he gonna get fields? He showed him like a small reward, and the narration, like the Malak was like, only this much? Like istasgharahu or istahqarahu. Like he saw him too little for the work that he's doing. It's like, okay, go down and live with him for a bit. So the Malak comes in the body of a human and is like, yeah, I want to come in and pray with you. So they start praying, ruk'ah, salat al-subh, salat al-layl, all that stuff from morning till evening. And then when one morning comes, the Malak says, this island is so beautiful. It only should be used for worship. And the one from Bani Israel is like, yes, but there's one little issue. According to the narration, it's like the grass is too tall. If only God had a donkey or something to send down, like God's donkey, just like I would say God's son, to send down and graze on this grass so it doesn't get so it gets used. The Malak is like, what are you talking about? God doesn't have it like donkey, or a cattle or something like that. He's like, I know, if he did, then he would have sent it down and he would have eaten this grass. So the Malak understood at that point. This person is doing ibadah, worship, prayers all the time, but he doesn't have aql. He doesn't have deeper understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why in a lot of hadith, it tells us understand Allah, understand your God. Because that is how you get rewarded. One of the narrations of one of the Imams says, a person gets rewarded based on his intellect, based on his aql. There's another narration where a man comes and tells one of the Imams, oh, I know this person, he's such a good abid, he makes so many good prayers. And the Imam tells him, don't tell me about his ibadah, tell me about his aql, tell me about his intellect. Because that is the thing that is going to elevate you in heaven. If you worship Allah only, subhanahu wa ta'ala, only because you lived in this culture, you lived in this society, then your faith is incomplete. You have to go look. You have to go explore. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. So at the end of the day, when we look at all these aspects, when we look at the life of Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam, we see that there is a lot of issues with culture. When we follow only culture, when we only see Islam through the lens of culture, a lot of times we get strayed away. There was once like a Salafi YouTuber, is like he was showing like some people, it's like some rural area in like Asia, and there's like women and men in the same place, and the women's hijabs were off, and they were doing latmiya. And he was trying to basically misguide his followers by telling them, see, this is how the Shia are. They do latmiya with their hijabs off and stuff like that. Another person, a Shia, responded to his clip, is like, okay, if you're using this as an example to represent all Shia, here's a video showing men and women in somewhere like, I think in Egypt or something like that. The men and women are praying side by side, or the women are in front of the men. And like, is this how Sunnis are? They pray together with the women? So when we look at this thing, when we see why are people doing the things this way? Like you see in a culture, in a village or something like that, why are people like doing this? This is wrong. It's only because they haven't studied their religion. They're like, I have hub for Imam Hussein, I have love for Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, and that's good enough. In one narration, one man sent his wife to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam and asked her, are we from your Shia? We guys are all called Shia, right? When I was a kid, the people in my compound used to bully me by calling me Shi'i. They were all Sunnis, Salafis probably. Are we Shia guys? If you said yes, then you got it wrong. We're not Shia. Shia is a higher level. Not everybody is a Shia. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam replied to this woman and she said, whoever follows all our commands and doesn't do anything that we denied them from is one of our Shia. The man, when he heard the news, he started crying. He's like, none of us have committed a sin? Who of us wasn't led astray at one time? And the woman, so she went to Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam. She's like, this is what happening. My husband is crying. He's like, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, she said, he might not be of our Shia, but he could be one of our lovers. And on a lot of ahadith, we see that it talks about Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam picking her lovers, her Shia and lovers. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us one of the lovers of Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to the wisdom of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. May Allah guide our women to become models like Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. And may Allah guide our men to become like Imam Ali alayhi salam. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali tayyibin at-tahirin.